These wide receivers are something else. They got a trio that might be the best in the country. The numbers are eye popping. And again, I go back to that Texas game over and over and over because I looked at the physicality along the offensive and defensive lines and what Texas brought and how they just looked like the far superior team in all conceivable ways, except for Klubnik throwing the ball to these three guys. Antonio Williams, of course, Bryant Wesco and TJ Moore had a great game. And they're all back.
Yeah, and they've got some depth behind those guys, but it absolutely starts with those three. And those guys, as good as they were last year, TJ Moore and Bryant Wesker, they were both freshmen, still learning. Most players tend to take their biggest jumps between year one, year two. If you can get a big jump from both of those guys, man, whew, that would be something. But it kind of starts and stops with Antonio. He has kind of become Klubnik's favorite target when he needs when Clemson needs a play in the passing game more often than not. It's Antonio that Klubnik's looking for. I think he's one of the best route runners in the country. He talked a little bit the other day about how he said, I'm not this 6'4" guy, meaning I'm not going to be intimidating anybody with my size. So I've got to, be sure that my route running's on point. I think he's become one of the better ones in the country. But that downfield passing game, as good as it was at times last year, it still stalled. There were still times where it stalled and Clemson's offense would bog down and have a bunch of 3-and-outs in a row. Wesco got banged up there in the middle of the season. I think that hampered him a little bit a couple of games after he came back. TJ Moore is the one that I'm just so high on, man. I think he's going to have a monster season this year. Then you add this Tristan Smith kid they signed out of the portal, the 6'5" guy who just killed it in the spring game. He gives you that tall, long, outside target, kind of something the room was missing. A guy that had like 70-something catches last year, 900-something yards. And then there's the forgotten man, Tyler Brown, freshman All-American the year before last, hurt all of last season. People are kind of, he's kind of become an afterthought because of all these other guys. He didn't hardly play last year. That gives Clemson two really good slot receivers, man. I think they're going to go 6 deep at receiver when you factor in Cole Turner. You talked about that it being one of the best starting group of receivers. It might be one of the deepest too.
Yeah, I got to say, I just jotted the three guys down and then thought you would take it from there, and I wouldn't remember any of those guys. But Tyler Brown, yeah, I remember how good he was the year before. I forgot about him. You're right. People did forget about him, including me.
Yeah, I don't think people are going to be forgetting about him once the season starts. Not for very long, anyways. Because I think we're going to see a lot of rotating in and out. There's only one ball. There's 5, 6 of those guys. You got to find some way to kind of keep them all happy with the amount of opportunities and targets they're getting. It's a good problem to have, but I don't envy Tyler Grissom when it comes to having to decide how to divvy those reps up.
And Jason, for all the experience and not just talent, experience at wide receiver, there's just about as little experience on the opposite end of the spectrum at tight end, from what I see.
Yeah, with Jake Brennan still moving on, that kind of opens up, some opportunities for the guys that were behind him last year. Olsen, Pat Henry, he got to play. I forget how many snaps it was. But we saw, in his. I don't want to say he got a ton of opportunities, but we saw enough of him, and he flashed when he was out there. To me, it's the guy behind that was a freshman last year, Christian Betancourt, 6'4", 235, 240. He kind of gives you something in the same mold of what Brenningstool was, just not quite as tall as Brenningstool was. One of those big guys that can be a big target in the red zone. Probably played, if I'm remembering right, played more, more of an outside receiver or more of a receiver spot in high school than he did tight end. But I think he's a player that can be another dangerous weapon for Klubnik in that passing game. But I I fully believe that Pat Henry is going to be one of those guys that a lot of people aren't talking about before the season, but by about mid-season, most people are going to know who he is. He's not flashy. He's certainly willing to do all the dirty work that it takes to play tight end. Kind of seems to excel at some of that stuff. Aspect that maybe Brennan Stool didn't excel at so much, blocking in the running game and those kind of things. I think he likes to get in there and mix it up, but he can also make some plays in the passing game. I just think it's going to be one. I think tight end is going to end up being a strength for this team, despite the fact that Brennan Stool's moved on.
All right, folks, you can catch Jason's work at Clemson Insider. You see his X handle right there on the banner. So just follow Jason's work right there on X/Twitter. And again, it's Clemson Insider. And join us here at the Voice of College Football. Please like and subscribe. We got a Thursday night Clemson show at 9 p.m. Eastern time.